On a quiet weekday afternoon at the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, Evelyn Chambers stood before a 17th-century Dutch still life, explaining the details of the artwork to visitors. Even in the museum's dim lighting, her eyes captured the subtle changes in the painting's color tones. As she spoke with passion, her demeanor was filled with pride as a curator. The fruits and flowers depicted in this painting appear luxurious, but they're actually symbols of impermanence. The artist is asking us to consider the true value beyond superficial beauty, she explained. When the tour ended, Evelyn returned to her office and glanced at the photo frame on her desk. It was a family photo taken at a birthday celebration a few years ago. Twin sisters Evelyn and Caroline standing between their parents, Robert and Judith. Though they had identical features, Caroline was dressed in the latest designer brands with a perfect blonde hairstyle, smiling confidently, while Evelyn had a hesitant smile with her natural brown hair and simple black dress. The ringtone of her smartphone brought Evelyn back to reality. The screen displayed "Mom." "Yes, Mom, I'm listening," Evelyn answered while gazing at the cloudy sky outside her window. "About your birthday party. Can you come to the house next Saturday?" Judith's voice, as usual, assumed there were no other options. "I've prepared a special surprise." "Of course, I'll be there," Evelyn replied. The word "surprise" brought a slight uneasiness to her chest. Surprises in the Chambers family typically delighted Caroline but hurt Evelyn. After hanging up, a text message arrived from Caroline. "Did you hear from Mom? Sounds like an amazing surprise. I've prepared something for you too." Evelyn smiled wryly. Her sister's "something" was usually either a misunderstanding of her preferences or an implicit criticism of her lifestyle. Last birthday, it had been a gift certificate to an expensive spa with the message, "You need to take care of yourself sometimes." In the evening twilight, Evelyn returned to her small apartment. Prints of paintings she had helped restore adorned the walls, and art history books lined her old bookshelf. It was a comfortable space, but in her family's eyes, it only deserved the assessment of "you could do better." On the table was a photograph of her grandfather Gerald, who had passed away 10 years ago. The kind-eyed elderly man was the family member Evelyn had loved most. "You have an eye for recognizing true value," he often told her. Those words alone had sustained her confidence. The next morning, while working on restoring an old painting in the museum's conservation room, Evelyn was immersed in memories of her grandfather. When she was a child, Gerald and his wife Rose had taken her to antique markets and taught her to appreciate old items. Only her grandparents had recognized her sensibility, which her parents and sister never understood. The phone rang, and her father Robert's voice came through. "Evelyn, are you ready for next week? Turning 40 is a special milestone. We have a special gift for you and your sister." Evelyn smiled and replied, "Thank you, Dad. I'm looking forward to it." After hanging up, she looked at her grandfather's photograph. "I wonder what kind of surprise it is, Grandpa," she whispered. If he were alive, he would have been by her side, supporting her. Meanwhile, at a luxury real estate office in Boston, Caroline was celebrating closing a deal on a multi-million-dollar property. "Cheers." Her colleagues gathered around her, raising champagne glasses. "Congratulations, Caroline. You've broken another company record," her boss patted her shoulder. Caroline smiled with satisfaction. She was the pride of the Chambers family. Her parents proudly told their friends about her success, and she was the center of attention at family gatherings. Meanwhile, Evelyn's work at the museum was dismissed as just a hobby. On the weekend, Evelyn visited her parents' home and was helping her mother cook in the kitchen. Through the window, she could see her father talking on the phone in the garden. "It's Caroline," Judith explained. "She seems to have secured another big contract. That girl always surprises us." Evelyn nodded silently. Her mother's voice was filled with pride, but she had never spoken about Evelyn's work in the same tone. That night, in her bedroom, Evelyn opened an old book from her grandfather. It was a book of art criticism he had left her, with the inscription, "To my dear Evelyn, never forget to see the true value." As the birthday party approached, Evelyn fell asleep with mixed feelings of anxiety and anticipation. The Chambers mansion was bustling with preparations for the twins' 40th birthday party. A white tent had been set up in the courtyard of the elegant brick house, and catering staff were arranging tables. Evelyn had arrived early and was watching her mother Judith give instructions. "Evelyn, don't just stand there, could you arrange the vases?" Judith said while moving about busily. "We need your artistic eye." Artistic eye. Her mother only used that phrase when there was a practical purpose. Evelyn silently arranged the flowers. While beautifully arranging red and white roses, she pondered what her parents' special surprise might be. "Your sister's here." Robert's voice echoed, and Evelyn turned around. Caroline entered wearing the latest designer dress, arm in arm with her husband James. Her smile was full of confidence, drawing everyone's attention. "Evie." Caroline rushed to her sister and kissed her cheek. "Happy birthday to us." The words were warm, but her eyes held a hint of criticism as she scanned Evelyn's outfit. Late in the afternoon, guests began to gather. Parents' friends, relatives, and Caroline's flashy friends were chatting with champagne in hand. Evelyn had few friends present, just 2 colleagues from the museum and her college friend Lily. "It's time for the announcement." Robert stood in the center and raised his glass. "Today is a special day. Our twin daughters have turned 40. The guests applauded, and Evelyn smiled, but anxiety swirled in her stomach. "For a long time, Judith and I have been thinking about a special gift for both of them," Robert continued. "At this milestone of turning 40, we wanted to leave something for their future." Judith appeared with 2 large envelopes. First, Caroline. Caroline stood in the center of the stage and received an envelope from her parents. When she took out the contents, there appeared a house key and a stack of documents. "This is..." Caroline gasped, "a beach house in Martha's Vineyard?" Her voice trembled with excitement. "Yes, a place you've loved since you were a child," Judith announced proudly. "It will be a wonderful vacation home for you and your family." The venue erupted with loud applause and exclamations of admiration. Caroline's husband James embraced her, and their son Tyler was bouncing around with excitement. "This adds the perfect vacation property to my real estate collection," Caroline exclaimed with undisguised joy. Next was Evelyn's turn. As she stepped forward, she could hear some guests whispering to each other. "Will she get something similar?" Judith handed the second envelope to Evelyn. Puzzled by the unexpectedly light envelope, Evelyn frowned. Inside, she found an old key and some documents. "What is this?" Evelyn asked in confusion. "It's grandfather Gerald's old warehouse," Robert explained. "It's near our vacation home. We've kept it as it was since his death." The venue fell momentarily silent. The next moment, Evelyn could hear one of Caroline's friends quietly snickering. Evelyn was speechless. Grandfather's warehouse. A beach house versus an old warehouse. The disparity hurt her deeply. "This should be enough for you, right?" Judith said with a gentle smile. "You've always liked Grandpa's old things. You're sure to find something interesting inside the warehouse." Evelyn understood the meaning behind those words. Enough, it meant she wasn't worth anything more. Caroline went to the terrace balcony, holding photos of the beach house. The sunlight made her blonde hair shine, making her look like a model in an advertisement. "Evie, look. This view." Caroline called out excitedly. "I hope you find something in your warehouse too," she added with a smirk. "You're more suited to collecting dust in a warehouse than enjoying ocean views anyway." Those words were as sharp as a blade, cutting Evelyn in front of everyone present. Several people laughed, while others awkwardly averted their gaze. "Excuse me," Evelyn said quietly and walked to the far end of the garden. Tears welled in her eyes and streamed down her cheeks. Her friend Lily followed her. "Evelyn, are you okay?" "I'm fine," Evelyn lied. "It's nothing new." After the party ended and the guests had departed, Evelyn confronted her parents. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Why just me?" "What are you talking about?" Judith said, appearing surprised. "We thought the warehouse suited you." Caroline has a family and needed a vacation home. Evelyn had no energy left to argue. The next day, she confirmed the location of her grandfather's warehouse and decided to visit it alone. It was a 2-hour drive from Boston, on the outskirts of a small coastal town. An old wooden warehouse with a rusty sign reading G. Chambers. Evelyn took a deep breath and inserted the key. The heavy door opened with a creaking sound. The smell of dust and old wood greeted her. The inside of the warehouse was dimly lit, with sunlight streaming through the windows illuminating floating dust particles. The shelves were lined with old boxes and what appeared to be antiques, with a large workbench in the center. Evelyn entered, still carrying anger and sadness. However, as she looked at the old items, her feelings gradually changed. These were things her grandfather Gerald had cherished, items he had touched, chosen, and loved. Evelyn began cleaning. As she dusted, swept the floor, and wiped the windows, she felt as if the warehouse was speaking to her. It seemed as if her grandfather's presence filled the space. Her attention was drawn to a large bookshelf in the corner. Her grandfather's beloved art books and antique books were lined up. When Evelyn tried to move the bookshelf slightly, she noticed something strange. Part of the floor made a different sound. After completely moving the bookshelf, she saw a handle embedded in the floor. It was a hidden door. With her heart pounding, Evelyn pulled the handle. An old wooden door opened, revealing a staircase. When she illuminated it with a flashlight, she could see a small basement. Descending the stairs, she found an old wooden box placed in the center. On top of the sturdy locked box was a yellowed envelope. With trembling hands, Evelyn opened it and took out the letter inside. It was in her grandfather Gerald's handwriting. Only for those who can discern true value. As she read those words, something began to change within Evelyn. While reading her grandfather's words over and over, she examined the wooden box. It was secured with a sturdy lock that wouldn't open easily. The box itself was a beautiful antique with carvings, probably from the 18th century. "Where's the key?" Evelyn whispered. She searched the basement thoroughly but couldn't find anything resembling a key. The next day, Evelyn took time off and decided to continue organizing the warehouse. She started early in the morning, carefully sorting through her grandfather's belongings. Old magazines, tools, fragments of antiques, each item seemed to have its own story. In the afternoon, when she opened a drawer from an old shelf, a yellowed photo album emerged. Opening it, she found images of her grandfather Gerald as a young man. He was chatting with merchants at various antique shops and flea markets. Beside the photos were notes. 1960, at a Paris flea market. Discovered rare Sèvres porcelain. Said to have a good eye. Another photo had, 1972, at an auction in London. Acquired a small 16th century oil painting that no one noticed. Later identified as the work of a Flemish master. Evelyn was surprised. She knew her grandfather had been an expert in antiques, but she didn't realize he had been involved so professionally. Why hadn't her parents ever mentioned this? In the evening, as Evelyn was finishing cleaning the warehouse, her phone rang. It was Caroline. "Evie, Mom and Dad are worried." "What are you really doing in that warehouse?" Her voice had a tinge of irritation. "Just organizing," Evelyn answered briefly. "Oh, I see. We're having a dinner party at the new beach house. Mom and Dad are coming this weekend. Will you join us?" Caroline's voice was sweet but insincere. "Sorry, I'm busy." After hanging up, Evelyn continued looking through the album. She also found her grandfather's letters and appraisal documents, revealing that he had not been just a collector but a renowned art appraiser. That weekend, while Caroline was hosting a party at the beach house, Evelyn made a new discovery in the warehouse. She found her grandfather's diary in an old document box. September 15, 1980, Evelyn's first visit to an art museum. Though only 5 years old, her eye is special. She stopped in front of Titian's painting and asked, "Is this person sad?" Considering the subject was the penitent Mary Magdalene, it was a remarkable insight. She has talent. To think her grandfather had thought of her that way. Tears welled up in Evelyn's eyes. As she read further into the diary, she began to see the relationship between her grandfather and her parents. December 10, 1985. Robert and Judith do not understand my collection. They call it just junk. They only understand visible value and social status. They don't know what true value is. March 3, 1990. Caroline no longer visits me. She's only interested in expensive things. Meanwhile, Evelyn accompanied me to the antique market today and didn't stop asking questions. Her eye is definitely developing. Evelyn couldn't help smiling. Her grandfather had understood her. On Monday, back at the museum, Evelyn asked her boss, Dr. Richardson, "Do you know an antique appraiser named Gerald Chambers?" Gerald Chambers? Dr. Richardson looked surprised. Of course I know him. He was one of the keenest-eyed appraisers from the 1960s to the 1980s, especially in Western ceramics and 17th-century paintings. He authored several books too. He raised an eyebrow. Why do you ask about him? He was my grandfather. You don't say. Dr. Richardson stood up from his chair. Why didn't you mention such an important fact until now? To think you're Gerald Chambers' granddaughter. Evelyn was puzzled. I didn't know he was such an important figure. You didn't know? Dr. Richardson asked curiously. Your family never told you? That week, Evelyn eagerly continued reading her grandfather's diaries. Then she found a particular entry. January 20th, 1999. Today, I hid my most valuable collection. I haven't told anyone. When the time comes, only those who truly understand value will find it. My legacy belongs to such a person. I've hidden the cipher in our special place. A cipher? A special place? Evelyn tried to remember. A memorable place with her grandfather, then she recalled. A small cave by the sea where she spent time alone with her grandfather as a child. He always said, "This is our special place." On her next day off, Evelyn visited that cave. In the early morning when the tide was out, she carefully walked along the rocky shore toward the cave. Inside was dim, and memories of her childhood came flooding back. On the back wall, faint traces of drawings she and her grandfather had made with chalk remained. Upon careful examination of the wall, Evelyn discovered a series of numbers and symbols etched there. Is this the cipher? She noted it down and returned to the warehouse. The numbers looked like dates, but they could also be coordinates. While rereading her grandfather's diary, she searched for patterns. Then Evelyn realized. It was a combination of dates of museums and exhibitions they had visited together, and the catalog numbers of artworks that had particularly impressed them. A cipher only she could decode. When she solved the cipher, it indicated the location of a hidden drawer behind the warehouse workbench. Evelyn quickly examined the bench and found a small lever. When pulled, a secret drawer appeared containing an old key. Found it. With the key to the wooden box in hand, Evelyn descended to the basement. When she inserted the key, the lock opened smoothly. After taking a deep breath, she opened the lid of the box. Inside were carefully wrapped items that at first glance appeared worthless. Small ceramic fragments, a faded small painting, a small bronze sculpture, and parts of Oriental porcelain. Each had a yellowed label attached. At the very bottom of the box was a brown leather folder. Inside were detailed appraisal documents, photographs, and handwritten notes from her grandfather. Evelyn gasped as she read the first appraisal document. Fragment of 15th century Ming Dynasty blue and white porcelain. Presumed to be a special order made as tribute to the emperor. Only one complete version exists at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Estimated market value, $175,000 to $200,000. The next appraisal document. Small 17th century Dutch painting, believed to be from Vermeer's workshop. Possibility of being the master's own work cannot be ruled out. Based on X-ray examination and pigment analysis, there's a 65% chance it's authentic. Estimated value, $350,000 to $500,000. With incredible disbelief, Evelyn read each appraisal document. The entire collection was worth millions of dollars. Moreover, their art historical value was immeasurable. At the bottom of the box was one envelope. Inside was a letter from her grandfather. To my beloved Evelyn. I am confident that you are the one reading this letter after I've left this world. Only you could discern the true value of my collection. They may seem like insignificant items on the surface, but to someone with true knowledge and sensibility, their historical and artistic value is apparent. This collection represents a lifetime of gathering. I want to entrust it to you, who has that special eye. Only you can understand its true value. True value is not in the price. It lies in the history that each item tells, its artistry, and the emotion it evokes in our hearts. My dear granddaughter, this is my real legacy. A legacy befitting only those who can discern what is truly valuable. With love, Grandpa. Tears ran down Evelyn's cheeks. Her grandfather had believed in her and entrusted her with this treasure. It wasn't just about monetary value, but his love for art and trust in her talent for discernment. With deep gratitude, she held the letter to her chest and left the basement. Outside, it was dusk, and the sunset streaming through the warehouse windows was tinting the dusty air golden. Just then, her cell phone rang. It was her mother, Judith. Evelyn, are you still doing something in that warehouse? Judith's voice sounded slightly irritated. Why don't you clean it up? Caroline's family is coming again this weekend, why don't you join us? Oh, I'm not finished yet, Evelyn replied. There was a new confidence in her voice. Actually, I found something amazing. A special gift from Grandpa. On the other end of the line, Evelyn could hear Judith gasp. This is indeed a piece from the Ming Dynasty imperial kiln. It was probably made specially for the royal court. The depth of color and the delicacy of the painting is remarkable. Dr. Liang, the Boston Museum of Fine Arts specialist in Oriental ceramics, carefully examined the ceramic fragment brought from her grandfather's collection while Evelyn watched nervously. Where did you acquire these items? He asked. They're from my grandfather's collection, Evelyn answered. I only recently learned that he was an antique appraiser. Dr. Liang looked surprised. You're Gerald Chambers' granddaughter? His book, Discerning Authentic Oriental Ceramics, was my Bible during my student days. He nodded deeply. I understand now. Your discerning eye is inherited. Next, Evelyn showed a small painting to Dr. Myers of the European Paintings Department. Interesting, Dr. Myers said while examining details with a magnifying glass. From the painting technique, it certainly has characteristics of Vermeer's workshop. The way light is expressed is especially. He suddenly stopped and stared at Evelyn. Where is this from? My grandfather's collection. From Gerald Chambers? Dr. Myers' eyes lit up. His expression of light in 17th century Dutch painting is still a reference masterpiece. If this is from his collection, we should conduct a detailed examination. This could be an important discovery for the art world. The following week, various experts gathered at Evelyn's place to begin a formal appraisal of the collection. News began to spread quietly in the art world, and rumors circulated that Gerald Chambers' phantom collection had been discovered. Amidst all this, there were unexpected visitors. Caroline and her parents came to the warehouse. Evelyn, Judith wrinkled her nose as she entered the warehouse. What are you doing here? We heard about Grandpa's collection. Is it true that art experts are making a fuss? Robert asked. There was a tension on his face that Evelyn had never seen before. Caroline was looking around at the items brought up from the basement. Are these supposed to be valuable? They look like just broken pottery fragments to me, she scoffed. Yes, if you only look at surface value, Evelyn replied calmly. But their art historical value is immeasurable. Grandpa's collection could be worth millions of dollars. Millions, all three exclaimed simultaneously. We're family, Judith suddenly said in a gentle voice. Shouldn't such an important discovery be shared among family? That's right, Robert agreed. Grandpa's collection is family property. It belongs to all of us. Evelyn looked at her parents. This is the first time you've shown interest in Grandpa's collection. You used to call it junk. What are you saying? Judith's face reddened. We never. I read Grandpa's diaries, Evelyn said quietly. They recorded how much you ridiculed his collection and work. After a moment of silence, Caroline stepped forward. Legally, Grandpa's belongings are our parents' property. Just because they gave you the warehouse doesn't mean its contents are yours. We'll get a lawyer if necessary, Caroline continued coldly. I can see what you're trying to do. You accidentally found something valuable and want to keep it all to yourself. Feeling a mixture of sadness and anger, Evelyn retrieved her grandfather's letter from the basement. Read this, she handed the letter to her family. While the three read the letter, Evelyn gazed out the window. After a long silence, Robert slowly spoke. Dad really thought that way, his voice was tinged with regret. The following weekend, there was an unexpected visitor. As Evelyn was working in the warehouse, a luxury car stopped, and an elegant white-haired gentleman in his 70s got out. Evelyn Chambers? The man gracefully removed his hat. I'm Alexander Winston. I was a close friend of your grandfather. Alexander entered the warehouse and looked around nostalgically. I remember Gerald spending many hours here. His eye was special. He gazed at Evelyn. And it seems you have the same eye. He took an envelope from his suit pocket. Gerald left instructions with me. If his a true legacy was found by the right person, I was to deliver this. Inside the envelope was an official will with a notary's seal. It clearly stated, I, Gerald Chambers, being of sound mind, hereby transfer the warehouse and all its contents, especially the collection hidden in the basement, to my granddaughter Evelyn Chambers. Only she possesses the eye and heart to understand the true value of my collection. Alexander smiled. Gerald always believed in your talent. Actually, I am the owner of the Winston Gallery in New York. If you'd like, I would love to host a special exhibition of your grandfather's collection. Evelyn gasped at the proposal. The Winston Gallery was one of the most prestigious art galleries. The next day, Caroline and her parents visited again, accompanied by a lawyer. This is grandfather's official will, Evelyn calmly presented the document. Legally, this collection belongs to me. The lawyer examined the documents and silently nodded. But, Evelyn continued, I plan to donate part of the collection to a museum, in honor of my grandfather. Caroline's face twisted in anger, but her parents' expressions were complex. Especially Robert's face showed signs of regret. That night, Robert came to visit Evelyn alone. Evelyn, I want to apologize, he said in a heavy tone. I didn't truly understand Dad, or you. Dad always said you had a special talent. But he faltered. I dismissed it. I was only pursuing visible success and social status. Why didn't you tell me about Grandpa? Evelyn quietly asked. That he was a renowned appraiser? I was ashamed, Robert admitted. Because Dad rejected my values. He always said that true value is not in appearances. He sighed deeply. And he was right. After a pause, Robert continued, I'm sorry for hurting you. For always favoring Caroline. I understand, Dad, Evelyn said. What her grandfather's collection had given her wasn't just monetary value but the power to reaffirm her own worth. A few weeks later, art critics published articles praising Evelyn's aesthetic eye. Gerald Chambers' granddaughter has inherited her grandfather's excellent eye. Looking back at her restoration and exhibition work at the museum, her talent was obvious. Gazing at the sunset through the warehouse window, Evelyn remembered her grandfather's words. You have an eye for recognizing true value. Now, she could also recognize her own value. And this small porcelain fragment tells the story of the exchange between 15th century China and the West. Evelyn's voice echoed in the renovated warehouse. The once dusty warehouse had now been transformed into a small museum called the Chambers Collection. Local children were listening attentively. The value of beautiful things does not necessarily lie in perfection. Even with scratches and chips, it's their history and story that constitute their true value. 2 years had passed. Gerald Chambers' collection had become a major topic in the art world, with visitors from around the world. Part of the collection was exhibited at the Winston Gallery's special exhibition, and her grandfather's name received proper recognition in art history. Evelyn used some of the proceeds from selling parts of the collection to study specialized restoration techniques in Paris, and after returning, she established an educational program in her community. She had renovated the warehouse to create a place to convey her grandfather's philosophy. After seeing the children off, Evelyn headed to a small office at the back of the museum. There, along with her grandfather's photograph, his words were framed. "Having an eye that can discern true value is the most precious talent." Outside the window, the autumn sunlight made the sea sparkle. The phone rang. It was her mother Judith. "How was today's children's workshop?" Her voice was softer and warmer than before. "It was wonderful," Evelyn replied. 2 girls were particularly interested. They seemed to be developing an eye for seeing true value. "Just like you," Judith's voice held a respect that hadn't been there before. It had taken time to repair relationships, but her parents were gradually beginning to understand the value of Evelyn's work. Robert, in particular, now frequently visited the museum and listened to his daughter's explanations. Meanwhile, Caroline's life had taken a different path. She struggled with the maintenance costs of her luxurious beach house and faced economic difficulties as the real estate market declined. Experiencing the fragility of superficial success, she was gradually reassessing her way of life. "Have you heard from Caroline?" Evelyn asked. "She called yesterday," Judith replied. "She said she wants to volunteer at your museum." Evelyn smiled. "Of course, she's welcome." The restoration of the sisters' relationship had just begun, but changes were emerging between them too. At dusk, Evelyn stood on a small hill behind the warehouse. From there, she had a panoramic view of the sea and town, with a beautiful sunset scene spreading out. There she had built a memorial to her grandfather and grandmother. "Grandpa, Grandma," she quietly addressed them. "What you taught me, I'm now sharing with many people. The importance of discerning inner value rather than appearances." The wind gently caressed her hair, as if her grandparents were responding. Evelyn's life, like the old warehouse, may have seemed plain on the outside, but inside it concealed immeasurable value. And now, she was proudly showing that value to the world. The warehouse's legacy wasn't just a collection of antiques, but the inheritance of an eye and heart that could discern true value. That was a gift far more precious than any luxurious beach house.